So this week, we're going to be talking about kind of going back to the renaming portion of the video. But we're only going to be focusing on a specific topic. This week, we're going to be looking at the settlement statements. So the estimated settlement statement or final settlement statement, also known as a closing statement. So let me share my screen with you. You see my screen?
Yep.
So we're going to be focusing on the settlement statement. So just so that you understand, we have, there's two sets. We have the statements, the settlement statements for our purchase files. We have our settlement statement for our refinance files. So our purchase files is when we're going to include our master and our buyer. So the difference between these two is that the buyer is only going to have the buyer fees or our borrower fees. The master is going to have the fees for our seller and our buyer.
Master, both buyer and seller credit.
Yes, seller fees.
Yes.
Okay. When it's for our refinance, then we're going to label it as ESS only. It's not going to have anything in the front, like the purchase that has a master or buyer. Usually the statement we'll say borrower settlement statement or closing statement. But like I said, for refinance loans, it's just going to be ESS. Now, we have two different settlement statements. We have our ESS and we have our FSS. So our ESS, so it's these top three right here, it's going to be our estimated settlement statement. Our FSS is going to be our final settlement statement. So the difference between the E and the F is that the E is anything from the beginning when we open escrow or request the escrow documents from escrow if it's a purchase, up until we close the file. Once it's funded and recorded, that's when we're going to get the FSS. So the FSS is strictly only at the end of the file. Does that make sense?
Once funded and recorded.
So the settlement statement, every time you receive it, it's going to be ESS up until funded and recorded. Then when you get it, it's going to be FSS.
How about for the document? Is it the same, like the interface? Will it be the same, or there's a difference between FSS and ESS?
So I'm going to show you different examples right now, but sure. I just wanted to make sure you understood how it, but yes, if you read the document, the title in itself is going to say estimated or final. If it says final, it's an FSS. If it's an estimated, it's going to be ESS. But I'll show you different settlement statements right now. But I did want to kind of explain the difference between purchase refinance versus ESS, FSS. So the renaming part after this first section, on all of them, you're going to put underscore, the property address, underscore, the statement date that it was created. Versus the FSS, we're not going to put the statement date. We're going to put the disbursement date. Okay?
Yep.
So let me open up a few for you. So let's see. So for example, this one that is the same one for the same property, right? 8181 4th Street, 8181 4th Street. So this one right here, it says master estimated. And as you can see, it has our seller section and a buyer section. So this is your master ESS. So looking at it, you can see it's a settlement statement because it has all the fees and the breakdown of what fees it is. But the title in itself shows you that it's a master estimated. Even if it was just settlement statement, it didn't have this section. Because it has the seller and a buyer, you're going to assume it's a master. Versus this one.
As long as the seller and the buyer are both present, then it should be considered as
master. Correct. Unlike this one right here, it states it's a buyer's estimated settlement statement. And you can see it only has one section of the fees.
That's for the buyer.
So this one's going to be our buyer ESS.
Is there such documents, a seller ESS?
There could be, but because we don't work with sellers, we don't see a seller ESS. What we do see at the end of the file is a seller CD, but that's towards the end. That's once it's funded. Prior to that, we don't really see it much. So for example, this one right here, if you can see, this one looks very similar to this buyer, but it's labeled as borrower. If it's borrower, it can be also an ESS or it'll be for a refinance. So depending on the escrow company, for the most part, if it's a purchase, I have seen that they have it as buyer. But when they have borrower, it tends to be because the loan is going to be for a refinance. So when we're labeling this one, it's just going to be ESS. We're not going to put buyer or borrower in front. It's just ESS. Because there's no...
So for borrower, we are going to assume that it's a for refinance, so we will label it as ESS. That happens all the time.
For the most part, yes.
Okay.
It really depends on the type of escrow company that we're working with. So this one is also a purchase. It has buyer. It's a different company. This one has borrower/buyer.
Okay.
So it depends on the escrow company. It can say buyer, it can say borrower, but we have to keep in mind when we're working on the file what kind of file we're working with. So if we know that this property address that we're 301 Lime Street is for purchase property that we're working with, then we're going to label it as buyer ESS.
Yes.
But if we're working on a refinance, we know it's a refinance, then we're not going to put buyer ESS because even though it states here buyer, we're not going to put buyer ESS because we know it's a refinance.
Correct.
We're just going to label it ESS. Make sense?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Now going to, I think I just saw one that said seller ESS. So like this one, it's a settlement statement estimated. It's for, I don't know why it's labeled seller ESS. So this is a master settlement statement. So this one has our seller fees and it has our buyer and / borrower fees. So this one as well has both names.
And it's a master ESS.
Yes.
It's being labeled as master.
This one has seller. So yes, there is a seller ESS, but we don't really see much of it because we don't work with the seller side.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep, that's it.
Now versus our ESS, and now we're going to look at different FSS. So we have